much for joining us today for this month's Best Practices webinar. And while we have all the folks logging in, there's quite a big group today, I did want to take a moment because I know eMaint offers so many different webinars and different types of educational programs. I wanted to just take a moment and let you know the purpose of today's session. First, eMaint does offer product demonstrations 4 times a week. These are web-based product demonstrations done by a product expert, and this is not one of them. So if you're interested in seeing the features and functions of eMaint X3, please join us at one of these times. There is one in a couple of hours at 1 o'clock today, and here's the URL for how you register for those. In addition, for those of you that are eMaint clients, I know we get a lot of clients on the line, we also, as you know, offer monthly workshops on different functions of X3 specific to the software. Next Wednesday we're doing something on condition monitoring. That's pretty popular. Coming up we're doing purchasing, all different topics. All right, but today's webinar, to just kind of set the stage if I may, also our live boot camps. Greg, who's with us today, works out of our Florida office where we have a training and experience center. I'm sure many of you have visited. We also do full day and 2- and 3-day sessions at our tech center in Florida. All right, and there's more information on the website. But the purpose of our session today, these are our best practices webinars. And what many clients have told us and what we've recognized is that to be successful with CMMS, it takes more than just knowing how the software works, but really how to apply it. So we do offer these best practices webinars once a month in which we invite a guest speaker. Very often it's not an eMaint employee, it's just an industry thought leader to come and present on a variety of topics. You can see some future events coming up. And today I'm pleased to have with me Greg Perry, who's actually a CRL and a senior consultant at eMaint. And Greg, I'm going to turn over and make you the presenter, if I may. Hopefully we'll have a smooth handoff here. And great. And let me just introduce Greg. Are you on the line with me, Greg? You there?
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me today.
Great. Greg, when I turn over, if you can just speak up just a little bit. But as way of introduction, Greg doesn't like to talk about himself, but Greg is a certified reliability leader and a senior consultant with the engineering services team at eMaint. He's been doing this for about 14 years, been on the operations side and facilities, been doing a lot of maintenance reliability initiatives and various consulting engagements before coming to eMaint when we formed this team. And Greg, can you, before you start your formal presentation, maybe it's easier for you to put in your words kind of a little bit of the mission of your team, because I know people think of eMaint only as the provider of the software, and how for our clients out there when your team generally gets involved, and a little bit about your mission.
Absolutely, Rona. You know, after doing this for so long, and as you brought to light here, in so many years, CMMS is just one of many, okay, that maintenance professionals use in their toolbox, okay? And so what we realize at eMaint is not only can we offer you world-class CMMS software and world-class CMMS services, but we also can be more holistic, okay? And we can actually bring to the table a lot more experience and expertise to help our clients along their reliability journey. So therefore, engineering services is poised to be able to partner with our clients and begin their journey with us and with us with them.
Great. Well, listen, I know you're all here to hear Greg share his thoughts, but before I turn it over, just a couple quick housekeeping items. Greg has agreed to stay. His formal presentation will be about 30 to 40 minutes, but he has agreed to stay and answer any questions you might have. But please feel free to enter into the questions. Type your question at any time in the GoToWebinar questions feature, and I'll go ahead and read them to Greg at the end of the presentation. All right, we are recording today's session because often people want to listen back to certain areas or also share it with other members of the team. So we'll be sending out an email at the conclusion or later today with a link to the recording. And if you do want to get a copy, a PDF of Greg's slide deck, we'll make that available as well. There'll just be a little checkbox at the end, at the survey at the end of the session, and please indicate if you'd like to get a copy. So I think that's it for the housekeeping, and Greg, let me turn it over to you.
Absolutely. All right, for today's webinar, we're going to be talking about the topic of getting the most out of your CMMS. All right, so without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump over into an agenda. We're going to talk about the benefits of a CMMS, computer maintenance management software, the functionality, the real purpose of a CMMS, a couple of poll questions scattered here and there, and then we're going to talk about a pathway to a successful CMMS implementation, touch on that lightly actually, and then more of a dive into the tips on unleashing your full potential for your CMMS. So starting right out, what can a CMMS help you do? All right, so I've listed a few bullet points in there, and this is not the complete list. I mean, this is just one of many. But a CMMS can help you extend the life of assets. Okay, it doesn't do it directly, obviously, but it can help you manage the life of the asset, reduce equipment downtime. Okay, track the downtime. Help you understand where is the downtime moments. More importantly, the downtime moments that are costing you. The cost least effective downtime moments. Reduce maintenance costs. Okay, get lean in your maintenance processes. Eliminate manual processes. Okay, improve customer satisfaction. How about that? That's a good thought. Improve work completion rates. Increase visibility and transparency across your maintenance organization, all the way from the top down. Okay, so there's nothing hidden, nothing cloaked. It's nothing that's you have to go dig out that shoebox or go find Ted and see what's in his head. Okay, so it's all in your CMMS system. Help regulatory standards. Okay, so you definitely have to have a tool to help you manage that. Increase worker productivity. And also, how about this? Let's talk about going green. Create a paperless work environment. So it enables your technicians to free themselves of paper and the bonds of a clipboard and actually be able to have in-the-moment maintenance recording. So these are a few things of what a CMMS can help you do. So with understanding what a CMMS is, here's a depiction of a typical CMMS environment. Like you see, it's multifaceted. There's more than one role or in your organization that's involved in the CMMS fabric. So we have everything from work execution, work management, supervisory manager, CMMS planners, schedulers, to the actual management of the CMMS system itself, a CMMS administrator, all the way down to technician and vendor, where the actual work execution is happening. You also have inventory management. You have your inventory stores piece. You also have your purchasing piece. So it's definitely a multi-woven fabric. Okay, so it's not just serving maintenance solely. Okay, and then of course the reason for the season is we want to collect all of the data and make it historically available for analysis, and that should feed your higher echelon, or at least your reliability journey. If you have a reliability journey, your CMMS is definitely your backbone. It's a requirement. And so it's feeding your asset and reliability engineering pieces, whether it be FMEAs or failure mode mappings, all the way into some higher asset management with ISO 55000, and actually been able to bridge and help you understand and bridge the reliability side with asset management, such as ISO 55000. So just another quick depiction of the functionality of the CMMS. Again, a lot of arrows. Everything's relating to each other. And this is your more holistic view of it. So we're tracking assets. We're creating the work orders that are helping track the charges of those assets and the work activities. We're managing our PM schedules, our planned maintenance. Okay, PMs aren't solely just predictive maintenance as everybody thinks that PM is. Actually, I like to think of PM meaning proactive maintenance and planned maintenance activities. Proactive maintenance tasks in your task library, your MRO, your parts, purchasing of these parts, acquisitions, resources, contacts, employees, supervisors, suppliers, vendors, all are key in the fabric of your CMMS. And of course with report writing, understanding the data that you're collecting. I think it's very important that as a best practice you have to always reverse engineer how your CMMS is implemented. So define your output first. What is it you're looking to get out that helps define the input of what you put in. So the real purpose of a CMMS, okay, so what is it? All right, so we know what it looks like, and we see the fabric of the functionality, but really what is the purpose of a CMMS? It's the business of maintenance, okay? I have a nice image here of a repair invoice. So it's not unlike you taking your car to the dealership, right? And when you interface with the dealership, they're going to give you a write-up, right? Well, that's the work order. Okay, so you're reporting what is the problem. They're going to assign a resource to it. They're going to draw from their parts, okay, and parts availability. They're going to plan and schedule when they can get this done. Then they're going to go and execute work, and then they're going to come back with a detailed listing of what was done. So this is your history, what parts were used. Maybe even some indication of some other pieces of your, or I would say pieces of your car, but we're talking about functionality of your car that are in act of failing. Okay, so they maybe can give you a little bit of a heads up. Maybe you need to schedule some more proactive maintenance down the road a little bit, or we need to tighten up your proactive maintenance schedule here, Mr. Car Customer, because we want your car to be reliable. We want it to be able to get you to work on time and get your parents to the doctors on time and get your children to the school on time. And you have to care for that car. So it's not unlike this at all. So a CMMS helps you gather all that information, and it tells the story. It tells the story of what? Overall cost of ownership, okay? Management and control of your maintenance management processes. It tells these stories of maintenance activities over the life cycle of an asset. It tells the story of your asset. And more important, I think, it tells your reliability story. Where are you? Where are you going? Where do you want to be? Where do you need to be? More importantly. So, Rona, I'm going to ask a poll question, our first poll question for the attendees. Who owns your CMMS success? Good question.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. So, you know, we like to make these a little interactive and sort of get a feel for who's on the line with us today. So please just let us know. Your answers will be just shared in aggregate, not not publicly. Who owns this? Who's charged with a success, or who owns your CMMS? Is it maintenance? Is it operation? Is it just something management owns, or is it everyone's? All right. So just give us your honest assessment. All right. It looks like we've got about 80% of the votes in. I'll leave this open a few more seconds. Okay, let me go ahead and share the results. So, Greg, what our listeners have told us, 10% have said maintenance owns it, 7% says operations, 2% says management owns it, and a whopping 81% says we all own it. All right? Back to you, Greg.
Absolutely. I think the message is loud and clear already. Definitely we all own it. It's a collective success. Okay. When we talk about reliability, we're talking about a three-legged stool. Okay. And on top of that three-legged stool is your CMMS. That's the platform, okay, the foundation. But you still have the pillars below that are maintaining. And those pillars are maintained, or at least consist of a maintenance group, an operations group, management, and even materials management, if you want to bring that in with MRO. Some organizations, MRO is folded up underneath maintenance. So that's why I say maintenance, operations, and management is a three-legged stool. You all own it to support it. Have to, 100%. All right, so good results. So with that being said, upwards of 90% CMMS failures are due to one common denominator that is often overlooked. So we always hear that, you know, wow, 70 to upwards of 90% of CMMSs fail. Why is that? Well, it's the lack of ownership. Either just one of the pillars is taking ownership of it. Well, it can't be supported. All three, all four, however many legs or pillars you have to support your CMMS. So it's the lack of ownership. That is the number one. That is the poison. Pathway to a successful CMMS. Of course, this is, we'll go hark back on this. If you're looking at the writing here, you're probably starting to go, ooh, this is a little JFK here, right? Well, it is, actually. If you remember the speech JFK gave back, you know, ask not what the country can do for you, but ask what you can do for the country. Well, I like to apply that here with the whole CMMS notion. All right, so let us show you what our CMMS can do. That was your discovery phase. And then you have an interim phase of implementation, and we have a tried and true methodology of implementation here in eMaint, you know, with 10 key steps that we make sure that we follow. It's woven into every one of our CMMS implementation projects. And then we have to pass the torch. Okay, so we pass the torch to you, and it's total ownership. Ask not what the CMMS can do for you, but what can you do for your CMMS, more importantly. So what is the definition of an asset? So if you don't own it, you can't improve it, right? So here are two definitions that we pulled from various sources, and not just not an urban dictionary or anything like that, but these are true definitions of an asset. It's a useful and desirable thing or quality. Organizational ability is an asset. It's true, right? So an organizational ability is that stool. It's all coming together. And it's also a single item of ownership having value. So think of your CMMS as having value. It is your most important maintenance tool. It's your most important corporate tool, okay, in helping you in maintaining your maintenance activities. So can a CMMS really solve all your problems? All right, so this is an age-old question. But the short answer to that is no. It really can't solve all your problems. But you have to first invest time towards where. Assess where you are and what the problems are. Define those areas of opportunities to achieve continuous improvements to the above answers to the problems. Implement around established best practices in order to achieve promised results. And of course, implement and commit to reliability excellence routes, for an example. Okay, so these are things that are agnostic to a CMMS system. Okay, these are things that have to be in place in order to support the CMMS success. Okay, Rona, are we still good? Connection-wise and everything? Quality?
Yes, I think so. Absolutely.
Still good? All right.
No complaints.
Just doing a little check. Wonderful. All right. And continuing on. So, you know, what does the road to success look like? Okay, well, obviously, it's got to have strategy with proper execution so that you can have the success that you need. Okay, so the success is not a destination, just like reliability is not a destination. It's a journey. So you're using your CMMS system to help you guide you on your journey. So you're doing that through continuous improvement and realizing it begins with you. Okay, we have a little bit of the Deming's Will here, plan, do, check, act, but it's all part of the continuous improvement methodology. Can't stress it enough. You can do anything you want, plan anything you want, and you can act on anything you want, but if you don't ever check on what you're doing, then how do you know what you know? So moving over into the actual potatoes of the meat and potatoes of this quick presentation is getting the most out of your CMMS for measuring your success. Some quick tips. Number one, data integrity. Of course, here's a good quote. CMMS is only as good as the data flowing through it. And I think it's very true. The whole garbage in, garbage out mantra. So you have to make sure, A, what are you doing to ensure success in your CMMS? You have to ensure a complete asset hierarchy data structure. Okay, first and foremost, ensure complete asset historical information is collected. All right, all work orders collect everything. Okay, you don't do work without you put it onto a work order. Keep your spare parts inventory master record up to date and accurate. There's no gray area here. So again, we're going to be speaking, what can you be doing to ensure your CMMS success? So ensure your complete asset hierarchy data structure is complete. Also making sure that you're capturing all historical information on the asset. So in other words, you don't just go work on something and don't create a work order for it or capture that information. We're not out there to try to put together tribal knowledge and create solutions from that. We want it captured in the system. Keeping your spare parts inventory master record up to date and accurate is one of those pillars to success with MRO. Include critical spare parts in your bill of materials for critical equipment. All right, complete and accurate preventive maintenance task data for critical assets. Okay, and assign direct responsibilities for maintaining equipment, asset, and parts data. In other words, making sure that you're collecting the data that you need to be collecting. Rona, next screen.
Okay.
Hierarchy, standardized taxonomy. Just to kind of give an idea of what do we mean by asset hierarchies. Asset hierarchies as they're constructed, identifying your areas of locations all the way down to your entities, which are assets, all the way down to parts. This is a simplistic view of that, but if we go to the next screen, Rona.
Okay.
Now we're going to talk about a little bit more of a holistic view, and this comes straight from the ISO 14224, which is it's in the oil and gas, but I think it transcends across other industries as well. So, in other words, is your data constructed correctly? Okay, especially your assets in this particular layouts where you have your particular taxonomy laid out so that you can collect the right data and not just something that's agnostic. All right, next slide. Education and training. Education and training. You don't know what you don't know. Training is very key to your CMMS success. Again, remember we talked about capturing the tribal knowledge. Provide CMMS core functionality training for especially when you're implementing a new system and a project team, very crucial. They don't know what they don't know. They need to understand the core functionality of software first before we can start moving forward with an implementation plan. Provide initial and ongoing CMMS training for all maintenance employees. One of the methods that we deployed that with is use process control documents. All right, do you have process control documents? Are you putting together workflows and documented workflows so that when you have some repeat training with some of your employees, that you can use that as a training tool? Next slide goes right into documented work processes. Okay, this is where you establish the work control functions and you have those processes documented. Define your priority system based off of criticality, equipment, safety factors, cost of downtime. So in other words, defining your workflows. What does work order management look like? What does emergency work order management look like? What does non-emergency work order management look like? Use work order module to account for 100% of all labor and parts incurred. Again, we need to collect any and all information that we can. Prepare backlog reports for type of work to include estimated hours required. So that actually speaks towards another slide that we'll be getting to. Number 4, Rona?
I'm there.
All right, budget and cost control. So what are we doing in that space within your CMMS system? Charging labor, parts, vendor support costs. Are we capturing that as part of the asset history file? Document cost improvement due to CMMS and best practice implementation. How about identifying deferred maintenance and repairs? And also supporting lifecycle costing by monitoring repair costs and replacement values. Supporting that lifecycle cost analysis. Rona, number 5.
Yes.
Preventative and predictive maintenance. All right, so what are we doing in this white space? What are we doing here? PM and PDM change process in place for continuous review, update of tasks and frequencies. So are we going back and doing any of our continuous improvement projects, making sure that our planned maintenance and predictive maintenance work strategies are appropriate? Are we doing any review? Are we measuring our PM to PDM compliance to corrective ratio? What is that? Do we know what it is? Are we even using that as a metric? Track your mean time between failures, your mean time to repairs, failure trends, and other reliability operational data. OEE is another example. Are we tracking that? Ensure that job plans contain enough information for technicians to perform their tasks efficiently. Are we even doing that? Next slide. Planning and scheduling. Some more key points. What are we doing in this arena? Are we establish and document a process for planning and scheduling? Now, more importantly, do we have a planning and scheduling process? Monitor the level of proactive plan work and document improvement. Developing daily or weekly work schedules for plan work. Track status of parts. Supporting maintenance planning processes. Track and analyze emergency repairs, hours, and cost. Okay. So realize, too, when we say planning and scheduling, I don't necessarily mean do you have a planner and scheduler, but although that's actually a pretty good question. But you could be doing planning and scheduling functionality within your CMMS system. It could transcend across many different role types, okay, not just one planner or one planner scheduler or one scheduler or one coordinator, if you will. But what are we doing proactive? What are we doing in our CMMS to tell that proactive story is really the message here. So that leads to that all-important question, poll question number 2. Do you utilize the role of a planner scheduler
Okay,
in your organization?
Let's just take a quick poll and see where our audience is at. Do you have the role of a planner scheduler in your organization? And as Greg mentioned, it may not be a dedicated person, but do you have a formal planning and scheduling function? All right, we've got about 3/4 of the votes in, so let me give you a few more seconds. And all right, I'm going to go ahead. Oh, a few more. Okay, still coming in. All right, let's go ahead and share. So what I'm seeing, Greg, is that, I have to wait for the screen to refresh. Oh, look at this, 50-50. Gosh, we have 144 people on the line, but we're evenly split. 50% said yes, and 50% do not. So,
interesting.
Glass is half full or half full or half empty.
Exactly. You read my mind. That's what I was thinking. You know, so I see opportunity. I see opportunity in that. So if you do deploy planning and scheduling, you know, how much of the CMMS are you utilizing to help support that role? Again, if you're not using planning and scheduling, there's a big area of improvement there. There's a great opportunity. Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. So we move on to tip number 7, MRO materials management. Bridge the MRO reliability gap. Okay. There's definitely an MRO reliability connection. Okay, maintenance, repair, and operation, and maintenance and reliability with operations. So what are you doing to bridge that gap utilizing your CMMS? Can you, or are you designating critical or capital spares in your CMMS? Do you know what that looks like? Do we have a clear visual to this? Utilize demand maintenance to establish effective bill of materials. So another way of getting your BOMs built. Right? Use your demand maintenance pool or demand pool from the actual parts inventory. Not just a subjective, but more of an objective look. Track warranty information. That's pretty key, especially if you're doing parts consignment, or even using your CMMS system to track parts consignment and warranty tracking as a possible ROI. Establish and document processes for refurbishment and repair. Are you using your CMMS system to help with your refurbishment repair program? Is it integrated? Okay, big opportunity as well. Criticality assignment for each part. Okay, kind of feeds back up with the first one, design critical or capital spares. But do you have your capital spares, your critical spares identified is what this is asking. And of course, more importantly, you've got to have your MRO structure in your CMMS so that you can link equipment failure modes to those used parts. Of course, if you're doing failure mode effect, you're really interested in component failure. But when you're starting to get into a little higher echelon with reliability, you get into reliability center maintenance, you're looking at failures of a system. Okay, so what level are you supporting? Number 8, next screen, performance measurements. All right, what are you doing in this arena? Are you measuring true downtime due to maintenance and you document? Measure labor performance against estimated repair times and document it. How about measuring maintenance customer service levels and documenting that as well? Establish maintenance performance processes based on multiple indicators compared to baseline performance values. Kind of a long sentence, but you don't know what you don't know. So what are you measuring? And do you measure wrench time, and is it documented? Thought-provoking questions. What can you do for your CMMS? Are you doing any of this? Next screen, process auditing. All right, so now we're getting into the continuous improvement piece. Okay, so we're collecting the data, all coming in. So now what? What do we do? In other words, the so what? Are we conducting continuous improvement reviews of processes and data and workflows? Keep momentum going year after year. Are we committed to that? Assure you utilize your CMMS data to drive decisions. Okay, again, it's objective, not subjective. Use failure and repair codes to track trends and document. And establish a review process immediately, and especially with any go live. You don't want to establish bad habits right out of the gate, and that's what that speaks to. And it also goes back to your process control documents. Do you have those drawn up? All right, so that you can use that to help measure by. And so it's your guide, if you will. Are we doing what we say we do? All right, next screen, CMMS continuous improvement. The 5th stage of any CMMS lifecycle, and I quickly put that up top, what they are. It's the selection phase, implementation phase, training phase, usage phase, and then, of course, continuous improvement. So covers the future care of the CMMS for nonstop fine-tuning throughout the CMMS lifecycle. That's the reason for the season. Are you doing it? The longer the care, the longer the reliable life. And it's kind of true, right? That's what we're after with our assets, right? That's what we're wanting. We want longer the care, the longer the reliable life. Well, if your CMMS is the most valuable tool in your maintenance toolbox, then it should also be your most valuable asset. So what are you doing to ensure the longer the reliable life? And next screen is CMMS benchmarking, used as a continuous improvement tool. Poor utilization of existing CMMS is often a major improvement opportunity. Absolutely. Okay. if you're not using your CMMS properly, or if you're not using it to its fullest potential, then what areas of opportunity are you turning your back on? Benchmarking indicates open opportunities. It exposes those gaps. You can use that to develop your baseline needed for determining how well your CMMS is supporting your best practices. But more importantly, it shows how you are supporting your best practices. Tell's a tell. Poll question number 3, Rona.
Okay, so Greg alluded to benchmarking and how once you get into the continuous improvement phase, you want to be benchmarking and see where you are in the journey against all the different best practices that he alluded to, and let us know your thoughts. We're always trying to deliver content that's of value. So let us know, is this something, would you like a benchmarking tool? We have a large client base. How you fare versus industry best practice or other clients. All right, so looks like we've got about 2/3 of the vote in. I'll give you a few more seconds to ponder. Are you interested in benchmarking?
And also, Rona, is to make sure that you're measuring yourself against yourself, and not so much just baseline against industry, but yep, are you measuring yourself against yourself?
That's a great point. Okay, let's go ahead and share. So it looks like just over 3/4, or 77%, said yes, and under a quarter, 23%, said no, not interested in benchmarking.
Interesting. That's about right. That's about right. So yeah, I would say that we're split with a 3/4 that's interested in continuous improvement, or they see their CMMS functionality as an important cog in that wheel of continuous improvement. Definitely interesting. Appreciate that, Rona. All right, so moving forward with the next slide, what can you do for your CMMS? So in the areas of continuous improvement, you can increase or improve your data integrity, increase or improve education and training, use it as a work control method, budget and cost control, planning and scheduling, using it as a most important tool in your proactive maintenance strategies, use it as an important tool in your MRO management, more importantly, performance measurement, measuring yourself against yourself, and then process auditing. Absolutely. So it tells your tale. CMMS tells the story of maintenance. All right, Rona, that concludes the presentation for today. And I think it was pretty, I apologize for the glitches.
Yeah, well, hopefully, thanks for all hanging in there, and also thank you for bringing it to our attention, because we see a different view, obviously, when we're the presenters. But hey, thanks, Greg, for putting that together. And we have, by the way, we've gotten several people asking about the presentation. There'll be a survey when we conclude the webinar, and we're happy to share a PDF with you if you request it. And we'll also share a link to the recording, because there was a lot of material covered, and we know you're not going to digest it all immediately, so we're happy to share it so you can refer back to it. But please feel free to type in any questions, and Greg will stay as long as he needs to and answer them. So if I may start with a few questions that came in while you were speaking. Someone asked, you talked about in the MRO slide having critical spares, but you also used the term capital spares. Can you define what you mean by a capital spare?
Yeah, absolutely. Your capital spare is going to be a little different than a critical spare. Critical spare are either inventory parts or not expensed yet, in other words. So at the end of the year, your financial team will want to know what is the valuation, okay, of your inventory, because we're going to pay taxes on it, all right? So, well, the capital spare, it's already expensed. Okay, and it usually carries $1 on the book as far as financial is concerned. But capital spares are your large assembly replacements or large replacement assets, but it's usually maintained by the materials management department or your storerooms. So that's what we really mean about capital asset.
Okay, it's really the cost of the asset then.
Correct.
Great. Here's another listener asked us, do CMMS packages have ways to link to other documents like contracts and spec sheets? So obviously we do at eMaint, but maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the types of documents that you've seen, Greg, that are important to link to when you have a document hosting feature.
Absolutely, and I look at this as more of a job plan. So if I'm going to be effective and I'm going to go out and utilize the most that my CMMS can offer, I want to make sure it house everything I need for my job plan. So when I have my job plan, I'm going to have, of course, my task library of what are procedures that need to be done. I also may have important links out there to any safety, lockout, tagout, any regulatory pieces. I also want to maybe tie in pictures, okay, so I can bring that into the fold. I want to make it at the end of the day, my job plan is so incomplete, and I've captured every bit of information I can in it, so that when I hand it to the technician, they have everything they need for success to go and execute the work. So definitely bringing in and linking any type of outside document that you can, it all feeds that best practice with your job plan, making it as complete as you can. Goes back to planning and scheduling too. When we start talking job plans, a lot of organizations will start saying, well, that sounds like a planning and scheduling function. Well, it is, actually. Job plans are. But do you need a planner and scheduler to execute job plans? No, you don't. But using your CMMS as a platform to build proper job plans, I think, is one of your best things you can do for your CMMS.
Great. Yeah, it does. Our clients tell us there's no better tool for making sure work is done consistently, particularly
Correct.
across multiple locations and shifts.
Okay,
moving along. Gosh, we have so many questions here. Okay, you did touch upon ISO 55000 briefly. We have a listener who's not familiar with the benefits. Can you maybe talk about it briefly and direct them where he might go to get some additional information about it?
I would definitely want to direct you out. Good point. If you want to go out and look at the body of knowledge, I think is well put together. I'm going to suggest that you go out to Uptime Elements or MRO Zone. It's a website that you can go to, and there's a book out there that brings together ISO 55000 and asset reliability, and actually bridges the gap. Understanding ISO 55000 in terms of asset management, right, and then how can we marry that up with asset reliability. So I definitely would recommend it. If I had the name, I don't have the name of the book right off the top of my head, but it's part of the body of knowledge out with Uptime on reliabilityweb.com, which is Uptime, but definitely worth going out and getting that book.
Yes, and I think that book is available through Reliability Web as well. They are a good
Correct.
resource for that type of information. You also talked about benchmarking, and a listener is asking, could you just define benchmarking in practical terms when it comes to your CMMS? Give a few examples of the types of things that you'd benchmark in your CMMS system.
All right, so yeah, when it comes to the benchmarking, you're going to be looking at certain key areas that I think if you want to look at how well you are in each one of these arenas, so how well you're using your software to capture work orders. What type of work orders are you capturing? Do you have the right work order taxonomy? Okay. Do you have the right asset taxonomy? Do you have the right parts MRO taxonomy? In other words, is everything in place so that you can use it to its fullest potential? Benchmarking basically has a lot to do with, to me, I don't really want you to go out and try and compare apples to oranges, and we get different verticals and different industries out there. And so it wouldn't be fair to try to benchmark your CMMS usage in oil and gas versus over here in property management, okay, yes, for example. But basically, it's an internal benchmarking. How well are you utilizing your CMMS? What untapped potential is there? So basically, that's what I'm referring to.
And again, I think if you look back to Greg's slide deck and kind of the 10 tips, that would probably be a good starting point. And do that periodically. How often, Greg, you also mentioned related to benchmarking was auditing. And how often, what's a good recommended frequency for how often you take these readings and benchmark? It's obviously not going to be daily, but quarterly, yearly,
no.
what do you typically recommend?
No. You would want to be doing it as part of your continuous improvement program. So it's you define what that is. Is it every 6 months? Is it yearly? Now, I would say at least yearly. You need to circle back and start looking at in the areas of data integrity, education and training, work control, the budget and cost control, planning and scheduling. Again, not so much a planner and scheduler person, but a planning and scheduling functionality. MRO materials management, PMs and preventative maintenance, maintenance performance measurements. Okay, how well are you utilizing your system in those areas to help you tell your story? So it's going to be basically up to you. I would say at least a year for sure.
At least annually, yeah. And probably not much more frequently than quarterly, more than likely, to really see trends. Okay, if you were, here's something we hear quite regularly, but if you were starting from scratch, basically from spreadsheets, okay, to the listener who typed this in, you're definitely not alone, what would your priority be in getting data into your CMMS? What would you enter first? Assets, parts, contacts, existing procedures, etc. And Greg, since you and your team have helped hundreds of people get up and going, can you give some high-level tips on the type of data that's important to get into your CMMS right at the outset?
Very good question. I'm poised with that all the time in the implementation projects that I'm involved in. Well, you know, it all starts with the asset. Now, we can actually drill down into that a little further. We're talking about your entire asset registry. No. Can we narrow it down to maybe your most critical assets? Well, yeah. All right, so let's start there. Let's get the asset in. But before we do that, let's start having some exercises of your asset taxonomy and your hierarchy structures. Let's make sure that's set right from the very get-go. We don't want to have to come in there later and go, well, you know, we're ready for failure mode and effect and asset criticality analysis, but we didn't have our proper hierarchical structure in order. So now we got to go back and redo. So when I implement a CMMS system, that's going to be the first area I want to go to is the assets. I want to make sure that that's properly defined and properly formulated and properly imported and implemented within the CMMS system. And then you build upon that. The next area is going to be work order management. Once I've got my assets in there, now do I have everything in place to begin work order management? It could be starting with work request. It could be starting with corrective maintenance. It could be starting with just a simple PM program. All right, so even with your PM program, you follow the same mantra. Okay, we put in critical assets. Well, obviously, we're going to want to establish a PM program for those critical assets to begin with. So there's some logic here and some method to the madness as well.
Excellent. Well, a couple of related questions on the data. On maintaining, once you have your data in, and on maintaining data integrity in your CMMS, how often do you suggest that you kind of reconcile or balance parts, assets, compliance? I gather this listener is in an environment where there's also other systems that have similar information, and how often do you sort of do an audit of your data integrity?
Okay, so you're looking at your data integrity and you're establishing a gap, and you feel like during the assessment that, well, obviously what's being maintained over in my ERP system isn't being maintained in my CMMS system, or they're not talking to each other correctly. Maybe we need to reassess the business process that's happening there based off of the assessment. It identified that gap, so we come in there and we're going to do the plan, do, act again, and then we're going to go back and check it. You know, did we actually address the gap? Did we answer the problem? Did we fix the problem? But sounds like definitely a customer, or I wouldn't say a customer. All of you are customers in my eye. But it sounds like a listener is wanting to make sure that they close those gaps, those MRO to asset gap.
Or even perhaps, you know, checking on the validity of your parts balances.
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
Your inventory stock levels.
Absolutely. So what do you have as a, what is the parent system and what is the child system? So what is subservient, okay? Is that correctly set up? So you can't both lead. One's got to be the leader, one's got to be the follower. So identifying those gaps and addressing those issues definitely be something that the audit can expose.
Great. Here's an operational question, and a listener is asking, can you time meter readings into your PM program? And I know that's a feature in our CMS many people use, but maybe you can just share an example of how meter readings can play a role in your PM program.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the meter reading is capturing a number of strokes, or is a number. We're not looking at calendar-based, in other words. All right, we're looking at number of something. Okay, so the best example to give you out there is your car and changing the oil. Do you do it every X number of months, or are you doing it a set every so many miles? Okay, and so with meter readings, it's feeding back in, and you go, oh, look at this, your car's in the shop. Yeah, it looks like your miles are there. It looks like you're ready for a PM on a certain PM based off of miles. If you're not collecting the miles and you're not using that, then you're not driving effective preventive maintenance strategy, then you're lost. So you need to close that gap. So it's definitely important for meter readings. You capture your meter readings all throughout work order execution. So every time that you work on the asset, you update the meter reading. That drives the PM schedule to fire the appropriate PM at the appropriate time.
Great. All right. Thanks for that, Greg. Well, let's see. So many questions. I'll try to squeeze in one or two more. Here is someone who's a facility manager for a 150,000 square foot facility, and at the moment there's no maintenance staff because the costs for internal headcounts have been cut, so they rely on outside vendors. Can you just describe scenarios? Have you seen successful scenarios with a CMMS where you have no internal maintenance team but using a CMMS with outsourced maintenance?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can set a CMMS system up if it has the functionality so that you can set it up as a work request, and the work requests are coming in from the facility's occupants. Those work requests can actually need to be filtered, of course, and routed and approved. But if you're putting in the right amount of third-party contact information in your CMMS and you've got them identified correctly, you're able to probably, most likely, in any given time, route that work request straight to the third-party vendor. All right? They come in, they do the work, they turn in the work order ticket, which was the work order, and it's basically updated within your system. So, yeah, it sounds interesting. We're talking about property management or facility management here that doesn't have a maintenance team or maintenance structure or presence. You still use a CMMS.
Right. You still own the assets at the end of the day.
You still own the asset.
and the CMMS.
Correct.
Well, listen, it looks like we're out of time. We're not. We can go on for hours, but I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. We're up at the top of the hour, so I would like to thank Greg for putting this together and for sharing his thoughts. And I'd like to thank all of our listeners for taking time out of your day to be with us, and again for your patience while we had to deal with a quick change in mid-flight, but that's why we have teams here. And so thank you so much. When I conclude the webinar, there will be a survey. We'll share a link with the recording to everyone who attended, and then just let us know if you want to get a copy of the PDF of today's presentation. And also, please, give us some feedback. Let us know other topics. We have Greg, Roy, we have a whole team of engineers here that, are out in the field talking with clients all day, and we want to make sure we're sharing the information that's going to be most helpful to you. So thanks again to Greg and to our listeners, and on behalf of eMaint, we'll see you all the next time.
Thank you.
And again, you have the email. If you want to continue the dialogue, it doesn't need to stop here. Email us or give us a call, Marketing at eMaint, and we'll see that